Thanks very much for the opportunity. I want to talk about ageing creatively, and that's one thing that we're all doing right in this room at the moment. It's we often think of older people as those people, when in fact we age from the time we're born, and I must tell you, older people don't see themselves as old. They see themselves as people, which is quite interesting. And some of them are really highly creative. So my presentation today is a little bit about what we have been doing in ACH Group through our art strategy, because we use arts as an opportunity for people to express themselves, an opportunity for people to feel that sense of agency, to develop a sense of identity, especially for people who are living with a disability or dementia, who lose grasp of identity and agency with that progression of those conditions. Yep, gone too far. It's really important for us to think about the arts and what it does for us, I think. And it's that notion that the arts can stir us all. And so our arts practice within aged care is one of mutual enjoyment, mutual production of the arts, rather than it being a means to an end for a piece of work necessarily, or as a way of helping someone feel okay. So the process in itself is what is important. The outcome can often be important as well, but it's that one where in that moment, if people are in the flow, they can actually experience that real sense of pleasure, that real sense of achievement, that real sense of agency. And when we think about arts and people as artists as they age as well, this story that has been in the newspapers recently of an older artist, an Indigenous artist who started painting at the age of 92. She's now 105. She was an artist contributing through the Biennial of Art here in Adelaide, and she now has a major exhibition in New York. So Lukanun is an exceptional person, and when you think of that, you think, oh, not everybody can do that, not everybody can achieve that. Certainly, I would imagine that her culture would have been rich in art and creative expression anyway, whether she did it for herself or not before then. So she's an inspiration to us all, in the sense that it doesn't matter when you start, but when you do start, you can get great pleasure out of it, and you can actually become world famous as well. The other person that's really important to think about is a person who created the Hilgos Foundation. So Hilda lived in New York. She was as Hilgos, she was known as Hilgos, was a well-known artist who developed dementia, and she stopped painting. She couldn't initiate things for herself anymore, and she didn't paint as well as she liked, or as well as she used to. And her daughter, in desperation, was thinking, what can I do with Mum? And so she just got out the paintbrushes and put them out, and her mum started picking them up and doing stuff, and she observed that I remember better when I paint. And so she felt more like herself. She felt as though she was in the moment. And that's a great example as well, that regardless of disability, regardless of dementia, people can still find expression through art. There's a really good video available from the Hilgos Foundation called I Remember Better When I Paint, which is an exceptional example to us and gives you some examples of what they're doing in the United States around art and artists and artists for dementia as well. I think when we start looking at artworks, we can think, oh, if that's done by a person with Alzheimer's disease, then you can think, oh, well, that's a bit naive or whatever. But if you don't know it and you look at it for itself, the colours, the frailty of the boats in the sea, it tells you something else about how that person is perceiving the world as well. So what we undertook when we decided that we were having an art strategy in ACH Group was that what we saw was that the creative process often bypasses all of the other limitations that people have. So when we see people, if you give instruction, ask people to do something, they might not get it. But if you give an opportunity to do and watch other people do, then obviously creative expression happens. I'm still smelling velvet soap on my hands. I was just doing the felting workshop upstairs, and while we had some instruction, what was there was colour on the table, there was wool, there was beautiful texture, there was hot soapy water, there was bubble wrap. I mean, who doesn't love bubble wrap? So as a result, we just did, and we created some beautiful flowers as a result. And that's the key, I think, is that the doing is what is most important. So we've adopted that as the key for our art strategy. Rather than being appreciators of art, we've tried to encourage people to be creators of artworks. Most of the people we work with are novices. Most people in the 80s and 90s have had pretty tough lives. Anybody who's in their 90s now have lived through depression, have lived through World War, have had fairly tough lives of working hard and having not many material wealth. And as a result, they were busy working and doing what they had to do to keep the house going, the children fed, going to school, etc. So not many people have had enough experience of or a recreational opportunity to be involved in the arts. So we often meet people in their 70s and 80s who are complete novices at art. And what does everybody say? If I asked you all to start singing now, what would you say? I can't sing. When you talk about art, I can't paint, I can't draw. And so the idea is to encourage people, invite people in to have a go at something, have a bit of a try. And what we always say is to share your experience and your expertise. So this mosaic work that we did with Helen Crawford was what we often do is commission an artwork. So we say, okay, where do we need some art around here to liven up the place? And so we had 4 white tabletops out the front of our office in Mile End that sit outside, so people can sit outside and have tea or coffee. They look really boring. So we invited a number of people with dementia to come along, have a look at the tabletops, ask them if we could make these tabletops look better, what would we do, and what would be the theme and what might be the colours. Well, they loved the idea of birds, and they decided on Australian birds, and they decided on the colours. They cracked the tiles, they roughed up the surface. It was quite amazing to see a man with quite advanced Parkinson's decide to get out of his wheelchair and stand up and score up the tabletops. And when he was tiring, I said I would do a bit for him. He was stronger than I was in doing that. It's quite amazing. It was in July. They worked in the cold and in the wet outside, came a couple of times a week to do that work and loved every minute of it. And the man with Parkinson's still drops in every now and then to see how the tables are, and they've been there for a couple of years now. So the important part is that they usually, if they're novices, they usually want an expert. They want an artist who can give them good advice and leadership, teach them techniques in a way that relates. So not just saying, oh, mix this and do that, but rather laying out the materials so that people can feel safe with using them. So when I said about commissioning artworks, what we try to do each year is to try and find a theme for our Sala exhibitions. So for the last 4 or 5 years we've had Sala exhibitions, and we have them across the metropolitan area, and we encourage people to be involved in terms of a community arts focus. So once again, novices, we develop up a theme, we work with older people, we work with our staff and volunteers to come up with a theme. And of course in 2014 it was the 100th anniversary of WW1, and for many of the older people that we work with, they had fathers, uncles, brothers, cousins who were involved in World War I, maybe killed in World War I, and were quite concerned about that. But many of them also were involved in World War II, and so any anniversaries bring up memories, stir feelings. And so we thought we would engage in the 5,000 Poppies project. It was in Victoria, recently been in the news because those poppies have gone to Chelsea Art Show, Flower Show, sorry. And so we encourage people to knit and crochet felt poppies for display. We thought we might get 1,000. We got nearly 5 ourselves. We sent a couple of thousand over to Victoria, which became part of that beautiful carpet of poppies. And we had people from all sorts of places, people who live in their own homes and could knit and crochet, people who were in aged care, nursing homes as well. And as you can see, a woman there, she told the story about her fiancé being killed the day before they got married in World War II. And so she made 100 poppies in memory of him. So the artworks don't have to be just pretty, they don't have to be just landscapes, they can be deeply moving. And what we found was that people flocked to be involved in this. We even after the exhibition and the creation of a number of pieces for display, we were still getting poppies delivered. So now on Poppy Day in November, we offer the poppies with a pin on so that people can give a donation to our foundation for some more arts projects. And so we've always got poppies. So we're celebrating, commemorating the anniversary of World War I right through to 2018 with various opportunities with poppies. So our arts strategy is really about, it's not therapy, it's not arts therapy, so our focus is on that community arts, cultural development process. So it's, in ACH we have the theme that we promote good lives for older people. So it's looking for opportunities for older people to engage in the community and to work out for themselves and for groups of people what makes a good life for them. And most people, if you ask older people what makes a good life for them, it's the same as you and I. Things about having connections with people, not being alone, being included, belonging to something. And people with dementia say that very clear. They do not want to be excluded. If you say, oh, the people with dementia can go over here and the others can go over here, they say, no, I want to go over there. So, an inclusive. And it's really about making art, being involved in making art. And what we are required to do is to adapt the methods to enable people to participate. And then, of course, celebrating that contribution at the end. So the picture here is a picture of you can't see them all, I don't think, but about 120 older people who form our choirs. We've got 4 choirs. And they were invited, with some encouragement, to be part of the opening of the Come Out Children's Festival in May and last year. And 1,400 kids sang from the other side of the Torrens to the older people, paraded across the bridge, and then 120 older people sang to them. And it was called A Bridge Across Time because the children sang a really old song. Can you imagine? This was such an old song, it was Eagle Rock. And I was thinking, old? Wasn't that only yesterday? However, the older people sang Geronimo and Happy back to the kids. And the kids were they loved it completely. The older people loved it as well. It was May, it was sunny that day, thank goodness, but they were ready to be out there in their raincoats and umbrellas, They're just up for it and want to be part of the action, which is really important. And as you can see, some people have a real enthusiasm. This woman lived in a nursing home, and when the arts program first developed in that nursing home, she was really keen to get involved, and so they started off with looking at issues of feathers and birds and, collecting feathers and looking at what they could do with it. Well, her enthusiasm for colour took over, and she was involved in making this huge picture made out of various layers of paper, and some painted, some coloured in, cut out. There's a huge process involved in that. That was part of the first ever exhibition in a nursing home in Sala by the residents. So there's lots of artwork in nursing homes and lots of art exhibitions held, but all of the art was made by the residents. And if you remember some stats, 70% of people who live in nursing homes in Australia live with dementia. So most of the people involved live with dementia. So her picture inspires me. She is so proud of that and loves colour, and so that defies all of the notions of the little old lady sitting with a little cup of tea and watching TV. So we focus on social inclusion as much as possible. So partnering with somebody who can help us. So the Come Out Children's Festival was a great partnership. They wanted somebody to come. They don't pay you to do it, but there's an opportunity to be involved. We have partnered with the Adelaide Festival Centre. We did a small partnership with Sir Kids, and we partner with artists as well to enable something to happen, because most of us involved in aged care might dabble in the arts in our part-time, but we're not experts in technique and curation of the art as well. If we can have intergenerational opportunities, we take them, because there's great opportunities for various roles. Older people teaching younger people learning from older people, but also giving some advice about some new ways of doing things. So we try to focus on it being a learning opportunity. And our last Sala exhibition was Food for Thought. So lots of people used food to create art, but a lot of people created art and said, look at it and think about it. So they could really work on concepts and thinking and promoting some sort of deeper view of what life meant for them. Certainly performance or exhibition and celebration are key components to it. And every time we do it, we say that there's got to be a social element in it. So it's not only social, but there's a social element in it. It is political because we are changing stereotypes about what it is to be old. And it needs to be cultural as well in terms of inclusive of various cultures. The political that we have done at times has been more than just changing stereotypes, but trying to bridge communities in a local country town, and bringing Indigenous people together with settlers to actually share stories through art and to get to know each other better, because there's often a divide. Everybody says that they love being part of SALA, and you ask an older person, what do you think about the idea of being part of South Australian Living Artists Festival? And they say, I'm alive. I'm a living artist. You know, the irony is not lost, I can tell you. So they really, the idea of being part of something bigger, that their work is involved in something larger, they get to sell their artwork as well. And generally, there will be some pieces that sell, some pieces that are not for sale as well. And however, the opportunity to have them presented well, so that people can appreciate what's in the work, is a real enjoyment for the older artists. Sometimes they're group works, sometimes they're individual works, so it just depends on what's possible and what's available. Here's a lovely example of a woman who worked hard all her life. She milked cows before she went to school, and when she got home she had a heap of kids and looked after them. So at the age of 92 she hadn't done any artwork before, and she had developed dementia as well. And when we involved her in an art group, it wasn't say come and do some art, because she would have said, I don't know how to do art, I can't do it. But we said we need some experts from the local area. This is in Murray Bridge. People who can tell us about what's important in Murray Bridge and what has been the past, and some stories, because we're going to pull those stories together into some artworks. And so they could come along and she could talk about the dairying industry in Murray Bridge. Others could talk about their experience as the first Italians in the area, and how difficult it was to get pasta or pizza in Australia at the time. And the Indigenous people could tell us about their totem and finding eggs and building nests and all sorts of traditional culture that was important to them. So if you can see a person busily working on the artwork, so what she's trying to do is create a template of an image of the bridge, because she could remember the bridge being built, the damage that had been caused by the floods, all of that. So she's walking history. So there's a picture of absolute concentration. That program started in 2010 with about 15 or so people. It continues today, and Julie's here. She's the person who runs it up there. It's particularly for people with dementia, because there wasn't not much of an opportunity for people with dementia to get together and share that sort of camaraderie and understanding of each other. So that was an excellent opportunity to be involved. What they created were banners to go down to along the main street of Murray Bridge. So they did a number of pieces and separately, and they were photographed and printed on silk for the main street. And as you can see, the milk can and the cow is there representing that lady's experience, and she would talk about using a barge to float the milk down the river. So she put the milk can right in the river as she did that. All of the pieces were collaged and painted and made with practical materials. So the cow, the shape was drawn out, traced around, and the cow's made with beans, dried beans, and then photographed as well. So they're a beautiful, colourful exhibition in the main street, and then the artworks that were kept from each of those individual pieces were on exhibition in the town hall. We've got postcards from that that they sell in the Community Information Centre, Community Visitor Centre as well, that helps to put a little bit of money back into the arts program. Another example of the intergenerational work that's really important. So this one was similarly a process about Campbelltown, looking at what was important in Campbelltown and what people thought about. So we got children and older artists together. This man had been a scientist, and on retirement he picked up the brushes and started painting and learning how to paint, and he was quite an accomplished painter. But with his wife's illness, he had stopped painting, he had got depressed, and he had started to develop dementia. And his wife was in a nursing home, he was living at home, visiting her all day, every day, and going home at night lonely. So we encouraged him to come along. He said he didn't want to paint anymore. And I said, well, we've got some kids, and so you might be able to show them a thing or two. And that was the hook that got him in, and he came along, and it was very clear that he was able to show people particular techniques. And he joined our choir as well after this project. It was a time-limited project of 3 months, got him back into life, and he joined our choir. And when he died, his family said the last 2 years of his life were the best in the last 10 years of his life, because he was being creative. That's really important. And that's the artwork that they created, 15 individual pieces that were put together, which is in the Campbelltown Library, depicting various elements of the Campbelltown area. It's called The Colours and Cultures of Campbelltown. So there are a number of the kids and a number of the artists who were there with the mayor opening that artwork. So once again, celebration, exhibition is really important component. In Murray Bridge, the political was really, really important. We wanted to be able to engage with the Nurrungeri people, the elders in particular, in that area, to build that bridge with the settlers in the area, to exchange art stories and to get to know each other. Many of the Aboriginal elders weren't so sure about how to do that, so we developed a process where we had a cultural day where elders came, they could bring their families, and so there was a whole day of art making. One of the techniques that we had used in terms of encouraging people to explore artworks was sand painting. We didn't have to do anything with the elders to explore sand painting. It was a natural for them, and they made some really beautiful images as well. And so for the Black Swan was a really wonderful opportunity for them to demonstrate that. They were also able to say where they wanted that banner to be hung in the main street as well. So there was a real opportunity, and so once when they were able to see their artwork with everyone else's brought together for the final checking out whether it was okay, people were sharing ideas saying, what's that in the background? Oh, that was the sand finger painting that we did. And somebody else said, oh, I didn't know you could use it that way. And so they were just talking arts techniques across the cultures, which we thought was a good outcome. Here's another example. A woman, this picture is in 2012 when she was 100, and it's her 5th book of poetry. So she started writing poetry when she was in her 90s because words and phrases would just pop into her mind during the night. She waited until she had her support worker from ACH come in the morning. She said she didn't want to do anything else but get the support worker to write down what she had in her mind. At the time she was blind, had some mobility problems and some dementia. The poetry flowed. 5 books of poetry flowed. And so she was 100 there. She died when she was 102, and her books are still available online. They produce them, print them off as the orders come through, which is excellent. She came to one of our Sala exhibition launches with her family and read a poem out. She found it difficult to remember it all, and she found it difficult to read it, and so she needed her daughter to prompt her from the sides. So we adapted her ability to read to actually read the poem for everyone. It was the most beautiful one, and there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. So I mentioned the choirs before, and so we have all of the evidence that you know about the arts, music being good for people. If we invited people to come along to sing because it was good for their health, they may not have come. If we said, look, you know, we're going to give this a go, we need a few people to see whether or not it's a goer, a number of people came. Some people who had been singers and some people who harboured a desire, you know, they might have been shower singers or something, and so they came along to give it a go. And after the first session, I hadn't mentioned the the P word, which is performance, because I thought I might frighten everybody off. And at the end of the first session, where we were just trying out some techniques, they said, so what's the goal? That was the G word. What? And they said, can we do a performance? Okay. So we don't need to pussyfoot around older people. They will tell you what they want to do. So we started off in about 2010 as well with one choir. We've now got 4, about 120 people involved. And it's an inclusive choir. Some people who are involved are younger, in their 60s, because they have a disability. They may have dementia at age 58, 59, or they may have had a stroke or Parkinson's, and other people are much older. So we've got people in their 90s as well who just want to come along and sing. So they rehearse every week, and you don't rehearse in a choir if you don't perform, and so they're always on the lookout for a performance opportunity. And I checked my emails before, and it looks like they're going to do a flash mob in a public place soon, and we'll probably pounce upon the general public well. And it's one of those things that I just love the idea of being out and about, doing it, singing, getting the opportunity to perform. So here's an opportunity for us to show a short video. We've got a which is one of a performance not so long ago. We've got a larger DVD, but this is just a short one to show what it is that people can do. Thank you.
I just enjoy the company of singing. I've been singing ever since I could open my mouth.
You know, there's a lot of joy in it.
There's so much research now around the value of movement, of music, of singing, to not only our physical health, but also to our mental health.
You just feel good. You're in with a good crowd here, and lovely people. You meet lovely people. And I think they all enjoy their music, and the people who organise it do a wonderful job.
Watching people sing, and when they didn't think they could, or were told they couldn't sing, or they couldn't get to choir because choir was too hard, or their voice was bad, and seeing them to realise, of course they can sing, of course they can be part of this fantastic community activity, and just seeing the joy in their faces just makes every day, I know it sounds corny, but it makes every day worth getting up for.
We know that this stuff works. We know singing in harmony in a group is the most amazing thing you can do for your health.
Camaraderie, they take care of each other, they're proud of each other, they're proud of themselves, they're proud of the group. That to me is very special.
Thursdays is when we have our choir, and I really look forward to going to that and meeting with the other people there. We have a lot of fun.
It's just good for you. If more people sang and enjoyed life and got out and enjoyed it, there would be not half the problems we have.
Hello, baby. Hello, baby. Oh, chua away. Holly, 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 ho! Don't you know Yakimo? Oh, ring, ting, ting. Ring, ting, ting. Oh, hey, oh. That's how we know that we are all in this together. Come on, baby. I don't want to rush you. I only wanted to reach out and touch you. I got to start to hold that
So it's not great audio, and however, you can see the looks on people's faces. They really do love it, and the four choirs rehearse every week, get together 2 or 3 times a year as a combined performance, and they do the same repertoire. This year we got a grant from the Office of Seniors for a combined choir performance with children in schools who are doing the public schools Festival of Music, and so our choirs are going to learn the same songs as the children, and there'll be at least 8 choirs singing together, and we're hoping to get a few extras as well. That will be in October, so look out for that. Buy your tickets. We love having an audience for that as well. So just to finish up, it's really important that we think about possibilities for people. You see people come alive, really enjoy living. And what I say is that sense of being in the flow, in the moment where you're not thinking about anything else but the artwork in front of you, is of great pleasure. After John was talking about that this morning, it's great pleasure, and it is also a respite from all of the other things in our lives that can cause us grief. And so I think that we've got a real responsibility in society generally, in our own communities, but in aged care in particular, to harness the power of arts for people, older people, but people living with dementia in particular. There's plenty of us, and we will, in the future, there'll be more people living with dementia for quite a while, and if I should be in that position, I'm really hoping I get a good opportunity to do some more felting. So I've got some references there, and so if anybody wants any copies of the references, or where you can get some information around the evidence base for the arts, I'm more than happy to share that as well. So, any questions? Oh, good. Yes, I think, it's like we're all like different things, and so we've got to offer a smorgasbord.
My question was to do with arts and dementia. Have you found that when you give a dementia patient something like a tactile art form, there's more access to memory because they're working in a different way? Because sometimes dementia doesn't always affect all aspects of memory. It affects a particular one, say audio or...
Yeah, so often people with dementia will have difficulty accessing information or facts or procedures, abstract procedures. But if it's actually a procedural memory in their hands and doing, then as they're doing it, it makes more sense. And so giving people anything tactile to do. So it is, it's what we say, football. If you're training people for football, they have to handball 150 times every time they do training, so that it becomes something their body remembers. So similarly with the arts, the more people do something tactile, the more their body remembers it. I know that I can't remember my PIN number on my phone very easily, especially given that I've got 2 different PIN numbers for different electronic devices, but it's in there. It's not in here, it's in there. So my finger knows where to press the button. Often that's the case with people with dementia. It's a microphone.
Should we see? I realize that you have an artist in ACH.
We contract artists.
So are you open to have an art therapist?
At times. Generally, our approach is about finding what it is that people want, and if we say it's art therapy, then some people will wonder, am I sick? Do I have to go to that? We do have aromatherapy, and we have massage and things like that, so people sort of are quite discerning about it. So sometimes when people are experiencing significant distress or grief, then a one-to-one through art or some other form of activity is needed, and so we would bring somebody in for those situations. Often that's in residential aged care facility, and they will bring somebody in to do that work. So it just depends very much. In the community, what we try to do is make it about that sense of belongings, that sense of creating, making. And what we hear from people when we ask them, as Gwen described, was that it makes her feel good. She feels better after singing. We didn't ask her to say that. We didn't say, how does it make you feel? We just say, so what do you think of being involved in the choir? And she said, I feel better after I've done it. So we try to take it from the other angle, rather than it being therapy for a health purpose. We say that it's a community arts practice for good lives. People then will say, actually, my depression's lifted. When I'm here, I feel better doing this. There was a woman in the choir who had an obstructive lung condition, and her specialist was saying, what are you doing? Something's working, your lungs are in better shape. She was singing. Good. Well, thank you very much. Oh, there's one more.
I'd just like to say that my mother's companion, he passed over last year, he loves singing, and he did singing every week. My mum never sung, but she just loved being in the room with the singers and the people that couldn't sing. So she separated herself to those people while we sang.
Yes, that's right. And it's true, we need arts appreciators, we need audience members as much as performers. And so we do offer that opportunity for people to come along and listen and watch, but we generally encourage staff, volunteers, older people to be in it together. So when we first started out, I couldn't sing, and I've learnt. I'm not great, but I've learnt. All right,
Thank you, Lenore. Hands together for Lenore.